Everybody, welcome to the Apostates. I am Ren, and with me, as always, is the amazing uh, Dallas. I keep forgetting.
Yay!
My image is not rehearsed, so I can't point to where.
You mean there,
Y-
there,
yeah,
there, 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 there. Okay, there.
but so we're before we do the show proper, we're going to talk about something not necessarily national political or even local political, but it is social political in a way, and it involves the story of an upcoming sci-fi author's new book that has just been taken off the schedule because they has been accused of review bombing other authors and
N-
creating sock puppet accounts to do so.
oh yes, Kate Corin. The situation that has book talk talking. Book talk is not okay. They have what happened was this person came out of fandom. Um, from what she came out of fandom. She was about to get a book dropped, and then all of a sudden, authors, mostly BIPOC authors, were noticing, hey, there's a bunch of 1-star reviews, and someone began to notice that some of these reviews were saying the same thing. They first went to Kate quietly. Kate act like she ain't know what she talking about. She ain't know, and then something else happened and she just let it rip, and that's what book talk has been on for a couple weeks now. It's crazy. People are like, some people are like, I knew it. Some people are like, not only do we know it, we've got proof. And there's also the fact that she tried to create a sock puppet to blame it on.
Just
She
coming from
created
someone
a
who,
sock puppet to blame it on, fam.
as someone who I have loved sci-fi fantasy my whole life, and it's
Yes.
because anybody could write, you know, a political thriller or a crime novel or a horror novel. I think it takes something, and I'm not just talking about the world building aspect of it, because world building is something that, it's its own thing.
Yes, it is.
Some people think it's extremely hard. Some people think, oh, you could just make up whatever. I don't want to get into
No.
that, but it's more that taking these stories are almost always allegorical, and when you take something out of the realm of the here and now and make it applicable to the here and now, I think that is it. I think it takes a lot of skill,
Of
and
course.
I like the ability. Like, I don't want to read crime thrillers that take place where I live. I live here. You know,
It's
and
like it's like some people, they really like Dave Barry, and then there's some people who cannot stand him. Because it's like, oh, you're writing about Miami? Why?
I
You right
liked
here, fam.
I liked Dave Barry when I was a teenager. So, um, I mean, that'll just say that I
All I'll
liked
say is, I
I
think
liked
because I'm from Miami, there's a part of me that's always gonna love Dave Barry. Not as much Carl Hyacin, he's cool, but Dave Barry and Edna Buchanan.
I loved the novel that Dave Barry wrote that kind of like a Carl Hyacin novel, Big Trouble. I
Yeah, that was
really
his. That was him poking at Carl. I thought that shit was funny.
And what was sad and what was lost in the movie is that the entire thing where the bad guy gets like basically drugged by a reptile
Mm-hmm.
and hallucinates that Elizabeth Dole is coming after him. And it's the kind of thing that only really worked like 25, 30 years ago.
Yeah,
It,
that
it,
that that
it,
joke is a capsule joke.
yeah,
It's a capsule joke.
it
It's not
is really a place and time. It's the kind of thing that Saturday Night Live needs to stop doing so much of, because like, yeah, like I don't know. There was a reference I caught in a 5-year-old episode of Saturday Night Live, and I'm thinking, 20 years ago, no one's gonna understand a goddamn thing about it. Like, yeah, 40, 50 years later, we all get it. President Ford fell down all the time. That's, that shit's evergreen. But like, I don't know, when they're making like a random reference to a specific TikToker who's popular right this second.
Yeah,
It's
like I'm gonna go and do, and nobody's gonna get that shit.
what so yeah, so I'm saddened by this story just because I love sci-fi fantasy. If I have time to read for pleasure, that is what I go to. And I don't like ugliness in that sort of universe like this. And
But
God help them if they came after Nora Jemisin, because I just like the Broken Earth is one of the greatest fantasy trilogies in the last 20 years, and you will not.
not in this house.
No,
Not while you live and breathe.
not while I live and breathe.
But
I
yeah,
can't.
I saw this thing I'm just like I'm on the fringes of a lot of groups, and I'm just like, wait, what? And sometimes when group drama happens, I don't catch it till the end, and I'm only catching pieces.
I
This
learned
had
about
a
it 5 minutes
full
before we went live. So,
well, this one had a full like Word Google Doc sheet.
oh my gosh.
You know, when a writer takes time to make a full Google Doc just for some drama.
Well, they're not going to be working on their novel, anything but that. If there's one thing I've learned about writers, they will write anything but the thing they're supposed to be writing.
Okay, guilty. I've done that. I've done that. I'm guilty. I have done that. I'm not even gonna lie. I've done that.
I will say, I'm reading right now the first book I've decided to read for pleasure in like almost 3 years. It's a fantasy by Foz Meadows called A Strange and Stubborn Endurance. And it's like a sort of queer romance.
Nice.
This sort of third in line to a lordship who was never going to inherit anything anyway, basically gets is going to be married off to some woman in a random kingdom, but
As you do.
he's gay, and
Oh
there is
dear.
a complication in that because their world is going through sort of a sort of going through a sort of regressive period where
Oh dear.
it's one of those like reflections of reality where people like to think that queer rights has come so far. It's like queer rights is clawing shit back, you
That
know,
part.
and so this world has been experiencing sort of a regression in queer rights and standing. I haven't got the full picture yet. I'm only about 50, 60 pages in, but I really love it.
Yeah, right now I know I want to get to the two fiction books I do want to at least start next year is the sequel to Lovecraft Country, because I did read the first Lovecraft Country itself, even though I know there's not going to be a TV show.
In the TV show, the people who made the TV show hate, clearly hate lesbians, gay people, trans people,
And
and
indigenous people.
like there's like the people who made the
They
show. I don't
really
know if the book has this problem,
it
but
doesn't.
so that's even worse. The show really hates queer people, and that's why I was just like, I would watch an entire series that's Hippolyta and
Yeah, that would, like I said, I'm glad they expanded Hippolyta's character because she deserved it. And the other book I'm gonna probably work on is The Reformatory by Tananarive Due.
well, here's
It's
to
Florida, it's horror, written by a Black woman. This should be good.
yeah, Florida needs a horror writer like Stephen King for Maine. Well, here's to her becoming that.
Yeah, because well, she lives in California now, but still.
Look, you could take the woman out of Florida, but
that part.
do you think
So
do you think the Florida man curse just goes away if you move away from Florida?
no. If you are sanctioned to be the Florida man. It does not matter. It will find you.
It could be you. It could be anyone.
Basically. But for right now, it's Ron DeSantis, and I'm enjoying watching. Listen, like I said, I am like the battered wife at the bar watching her husband's ass get beat. I'm enjoying it, but knowing I'm gonna catch it when I get home.
Why are you so sad? Ron DeSantis is such an uplifting story. I'm trying to think of more pun. I can't.
More puns because he's doing his own gender affirming care by giving himself lifts.
Basically, yeah.
He can't find he doesn't have the emotional strength to be a short king.
That's the thing I don't get. The insecurity. It's just I have to be completely performative in all of the things that I think make men. Like, so you're admitting you fail as a man, then by
And
your
that
own
just
standards.
makes me wonder. Because I mean, it seems in every group of trans women I've met, there's at least 3 motherfuckers who were hard charging vets. You know, one with maybe even a special forces background, and but under it all, there is a woman who is trying to fight her way out of this.
I mean, one of the many ways it can manifest itself is by people trying to man as hard as they possibly can, and eventually it catching up, and it's being like, doesn't matter how hard, doesn't matter how hard you go, you know. So it's the Ron DeSantis and his gender affirming care. I mean, they're all practicing gender affirming care. Matt Walsh with his, plaid, flannel shirts and beard and lumberjack beard, hiding his weak chin and
his weak chin, and the fact that he's actually enacting a very reasonable facsimile of an entire genre of Tom of Finland drawings. I said it. And what? Be mad. Stay mad.
Just that entire crew. I mean, all they do is gender affirming care for themselves. I think the only one who isn't practicing gender affirming care is Jordan Peterson, because, honey, those suits. That is a queen dying to jump out.
It feels like it. I mean, I don't know too many straight dudes who go on benzo benders like that. Like, benzos, man.
You said it.
Benzos, baby. What you doing?
Might as well just show up with some crystal meth and amyl nitrate and go clubbing.
Like, honestly, listen. Like, it's funny when a guy who is straight but doesn't have any problems with the gay community accidentally does something super gay. Like when Tom Brady posted a picture of himself on Instagram in his drawers, and half of gay Instagram's like, I've seen this. I know who this is. This is the headless photo of someone saying, "Oh, I'm just visiting. I was looking for anyone to show me around," with the T's capitalized. Sir, we know it. We know what you came here for.
But I mean, all of this, like, sort of desire to project this rugged manliness with the, and like macho posturing to just prove how much of a straight man you are, pretty much just comes from the era of Bravo TV, where they had to invent an entire genre of human being called metrosexual just to describe straight people who were willing to wash their own ass.
In other words, the whole group of men who said, no, it is not gay to wipe your ass. Watch me.
Yeah, so what? If I, not even going to do. By the way, JD Vance is doing some shit with his eyelashes. I saw an interview with him. He is doing some shit with his eyelashes. I don't know.
What's Miss Vance doing? Did she get an eyelash perm? I
don't know if it was the contrast on the video, but it looks like he is defining some eyelashes.
Oh Lord, did somebody put him up with a wispy set and the set did not wisp enough? The set didn't wisp enough. That's what it is. The set did not wisp enough.
I'm just going to say it. There is nothing wrong with however you want to present yourself in the world, but there is absolutely something wrong when you make it your mission to destroy the lives of trans people and all you do is perform gender affirming care on yourself by having to get lifts in your shoes and dress like a lumberjack and grow the biggest, bushiest beard you possibly can and go on an entire all meat diet because that's what manly men do.
There's at least 40 pastors in the Southern Baptist Convention that could fit.
No, there aren't because they're all in jail right now.
But, oh my God. And I oop. Oh God. Okay, not all of them. There are a couple that might be out on bail. Don't know. You know, after watching Let Us Pray, it does feel like that.
So the big thing we're going to talk about today is Brittany Watts and
Katie Cox.
Katie Cox, Ohio and Texas, two women who have basically shown what Republicans really mean when they talk about exceptions to anti-abortion laws. And I think very specifically with Brittany Watts, the criminalization of not carrying a baby to term, regardless of what your plans were in the first place.
And then you also have to consider the contrasting case of Salia Issa, the Texas prison guard who sued the state for suffering a childbirth. She was 7 months pregnant. She was still coming into work. She was having contraction pains and was refused permission to leave work. They refused permission. And she's obviously claiming she was denied medical care and that the supervisor told her to stay put. And of course, the state's like, is it really a child? But yet at the same time, like, is it because this is a child belonging to a Black woman with a very foreign Islamic sounding name? What are we doing here, Texas? Is it only a child if it's white? What are we doing? What are we
I'm
doing
perfectly
here?
willing to ascribe racism to Ken Paxton's justice system in Texas.
I mean,
But I
honestly, is it really that out of? Is it really that out of? It's not really. You can't say racism is out of Texas's character. You really
perfect,
can't.
you know, I do love this part of the conversation when people talk about, remember the Alamo and the Texas War for Independence. And I'm like, why was Texas trying to go independent? Tell me. Go ahead. Enlighten me. That discussion comes up about how,
And then no one wants to have that conversation with you no more.
yeah.
And because
fuck the fucking Alamo. I don't care. Like,
I'm like, forget the Alamo. We're good. Like, listen.
I'll remember Harper's Ferry, motherfucker.
I'm like, listen. No, I will not be remembering the Alamo. I'll remember the poor enslaved woman who got sent to Santa Ana and probably wished for her freedom but didn't fucking get it.
But it's Texas's. I mean, talking out of both sides of their mouth it's so it's so transparent. But at this point, pointing out Republican hypocrisy is shooting fish in a barrel. It doesn't do anything. It doesn't convince anybody. But it's still worthy of note. The fact,
and it's also the fact that
for the case of that woman, you read her name, but I actually wasn't familiar.
Salia Issa. Yeah.
Salia Issa. Her wanted, desired child.
Yeah, she wanted the kid.
Was not a viable human for the sake of the state not getting in trouble. But Katie Cox's doomed
unwanted
and unviable fetus is a viable human for the purpose of the state exerting control over
and
her.
that makes no sense because it's like Salia Issa wanted that kid.
And
Salia
Coulter
Issa
came out and said, "What the fuck?"
That's it, like, bro, if Frau Blucher herself crawls out from her undersea kingdom of Riley, where she normally lies dead but dreaming, to say, nah, you wrong. Maybe you really need to think about your life and where you going with this. Like, you need to stand out there like Mahogany and start saying, where are you going to? Do you like the things that life is showing you? Because it's the idea that I'm like, at this point, I'm just going to say a black child that the mother that a married, she wasn't a single mom either. Salia Issa was not single. She was married. So this is a married mother. She already had other children. And she wanted that baby. And the state is trying to act like that baby didn't exist.
Meanwhile, Katie Cox wants to actively have another pregnancy.
See, at some point in her life, but this kid ain't the one. This kid ain't gonna make it.
Now, I neglected, shame on me, to read up on whether the pregnancy was far long enough to determine whether this was a genetic predisposition or a random. Because I know that with something
which
19,
one is? Yeah, it's like trisomy 19.
Trisomy 19.
Yeah,
it can be genetic, but it also can be
spontaneous.
Yeah. So I don't know if it's too dangerous to even wait long enough to see, or if they do know whether it's genetic. It's irrelevant, but it also is kind of worth noting that there is, if the fetus is too young to even get a genetic determination of like, let's stop pretending a 20-week-old fetus is viable. And people can talk about how we refer to them as babies when, and I'm going to say something I think people are going to find extremely offensive, perhaps, but I'm going to fucking say it anyway, because it is important. People who, when they get pregnant, they're excited. They learn the sex. They name their baby. They start making purchases. They start planning. They start painting. They start decorating. And they lose their baby before 20 weeks. I'm not saying that 20, by saying that 20-week baby is not viable, I'm not saying it's not valuable. I'm not saying that the potential for the baby makes it worthless because it's not a viable baby. I'm saying that it just isn't a human being with autonomy that is viable, that can live on its own.
In other words, barring serious medical intervention, it's clocked out before it's clocked in.
And the fact that one can develop an emotional attachment is really irrelevant to the fact. This is the side that always says facts don't care about your feelings. So I want to be very clear about this. The fact is that a 20-week-old fetus is unviable by any doctor's definition.
Yeah.
Once you get to 26, 27, 28 weeks,
then we can have that conversation
where a doctor can make that determination. That's the point where elective abortions are pretty much out the window. And we can guarantee you that elective abortions just don't happen after that point. They just don't. If you find me one case where a 32-week pregnancy was terminated on an elective basis, congratulations, you found the one. I doubt it happens. This is what happens.
Or at least I doubt it is legal. It happens in a legally sanctioned environment. There may be your Kermit Gosnells might be doing it, but that's about it.
Ultimately, it comes
and he's in prison.
Well, human beings have rights. When they talk about the rights of the fetus, human beings absolutely do have rights. But we're talking about, is this a person or not? And 20 weeks is not a person. And I am sorry. I understand that's going to hurt a lot of people's feelings who come to their pro-life beliefs from an honest point of view,
Yeah.
from not from the point of view of the Ken Paxtons of the world who are basically using it to control people, because he's not from a pro-life point of view, because pro-life
No.
doesn't say on one hand that fetus didn't have any rights and she shouldn't be able to get any money from the state, but this fetus who is going to die no matter what happens absolutely has all the rights in the world of a human being. Not that. I'm talking about for anybody, and I'm sorry if I'm going to hurt your feelings, for anybody who legitimately believes that every fetus is a human being worthy of rights. I am sorry I'm going to say this, but people can develop an emotional attachment to fucking machines that have faces on them. That is the God's
I've
honest
seen
truth.
that.
And I am not trying to diminish the bond that a mother has for a child growing in them that they want and that they desire and that they lose and feel like crushing despair from. I am not trying to take away from that, but ultimately you cannot control the life of a woman who wants desperately to have a child and finds out that they can't and they need an abortion to either save their life or save their ability to have a child in the future, and say,
Sure.
no, I'm sorry, you fucking can't. Not because this child's life matters, because this child's gonna fucking die no matter what you do.
And to me and to me it's like we're either going to end up with a woman who does not have the ability to have another child. You're either going to end up with either way that child's going to die. You're either going to end up with two dead people, with a dead child, a dead fetus and the fetus's mother, or you're going to end up with simply a dead fetus and the mother permanently scarred. And the fact is, I don't know if people want to have this part of the conversation. Dollars to donuts, Kate Cox is not coming back to Texas. There's no way she is coming back to setting foot in Texas again.
And she should never have to make that decision.
And she should never have to make that decision to move out. But it comes to the fact that we all know that Ken Paxton is a peevish, small-minded motherfucker. We know this. You don't think he's going to make her life a living hell the moment she's wheels down
I mean, this is the man who sent child
in
protective
DFW?
services over to the families of people with transgender children. Because he wrote a memo basically determining that trans affirming care is child abuse. So this is a man who clearly has no concept of the idea of compassion or the rule of law in general. It's what he decides he wants to do to punish his world order. And his world order is that women don't have any rights whatsoever. A doomed 20-week-old fetus matters more than than a worker who works for the state who wants to have that child. That child doesn't matter.
And that child and the child was 7 months. That child was, I think 7 months is like the line of viability.
I mean, it's beyond the line of viability.
Yeah. I know people walking the earth today who were born at 7 months. So this child wasn't just wanted. This child had a genuine shot at life. This was a wanted, viable kid. And the neglect of the state put the mother in such danger that the kid died. And the state's like, oh, that's not our fault. You have like 40 skillion laws against abortion, but yet this is not your fault. Honestly, it just no matter how I slice it, it still comes down to the fact of this was a black woman and you just decided to let her die in the fields, basically. You decided to let that kid die in the fields.
You know,
it's a dick way of putting it, but it's the only way I can put it where it makes sense.
The only thing that makes sense to me is that it is done for the cruelty and the control of women, because it's not a pro-life point of view. If it were a pro-life point of view, it would be, I will listen to the advice of doctors who say that she has a shot at having more children if she doesn't have this child. But this child is going to die no matter what. But that's not what is happening.
The doctors said it. The doctors were like, listen, she has a shot. And one lower court judge agreed with them, saying, okay, the doctor said it, said that they said it. I'm willing to let she can go take care of it. I trust this woman and her doctor, like you do. But obviously, the Texas Supreme Court decided they wanted to be assholes, and being that I know that the Texas Supreme Court voted for this unanimously, and there were 3 women, and you already know they were all white or white presenting. One was a white presenting Hispanic woman. The other 2 white. Like, I don't like to wish things on people, but I need white female voters to understand the sword isn't just going to fall on me. The sword isn't just going to fall on trans women. The sword isn't just going to fall on Black women. The sword isn't just going to fall on indigenous women. Bitch, it's going to be falling on you too. Oh, you have money? No, bitch. You're actually married to a man with money. And with no fault divorce, he can leave you destitute if you don't comply.
There's already been attempts to introduce bills that end no fault divorce.
No fault divorce. Yeah, I know.
I think Missouri. I don't know. I don't recall. But someone in the United States has introduced the bill. People would like to say, well, these bills, they'll never get out of committee. I'm like, I really get tired of hearing about the unlikelihood of really shit passing, because we were told for that we were told for 50 years about Roe being overturned, that we were hysterical. And all it takes is 60,000 people voting for Jill Stein in Michigan, or 10,000, 20,000 in Pennsylvania or Wisconsin, and people can say all they want. And I do blame Hillary Clinton for not understanding that the Electoral College was a thing and campaigning more in states that she had a shot in. I do blame her for it, but I also blame it for the leftists who erstwhile have they just have no concept. They're all...
Oh, no. I already saw a thread of somebody like, okay, so now let's get ready for Trump 25. We've got to make sure that you get in the forums and learn how to anonymize your comms. And I'm like, how about we don't do all that? How about you go, you fucking vote for Biden, you get wasted, and then protest the next day?
How about you go out now and go down to Florida and protest them shutting down the Democratic primary there? I'm tired of hearing about people saying how helpless we are. And I'm like, you're constantly going after the top down. When, you want the party to change because you don't want Biden. You're saying, that's it, I'm not voting for Biden. Well, then fucking do something to make sure he's not the nominee. Fucking go out and put some public pressure. Call your congresspeople. Tell them, I want Democratic primaries. And convince someone who isn't egotistical enough that they're not going to challenge Biden because they want to save a spot for themselves in 2028. And not someone who fucking like RFK or Marianne Williamson, who doesn't have a shot in hell, who have never held an elected office in their lives.
Fucking life. All RFK got is that damn last name. And people are becoming fewer and far between that remember it.
He's so our brains. And Marianne Williamson, for all the people on the left love certain aspects of what she's saying, I will remind them that one of her heroes is the founder of the Waldorf schools, whatever they're called, Rudolf Steiner, who was a eugenicist. Who,
and what she said about AIDS victims and various other things, I'm sorry. And if you take Marianne Williamson seriously, I can't take you seriously.
And it's not the fact that, I started saying, I am not going to shame someone for not wanting to vote for Biden over his basically green lighting of Netanyahu.
Yeah, standing by and let Netanyahu. Yeah, basically simping for an abusive authoritarian.
But if all you are going to do is pitch a fucking fit on Twitter about it, you are worthless. You are fucking worthless. And I'm not sorry. I realize that's not going to change anybody's vote. That's not going to convince them, but they weren't going to have their votes changed anyway. And I'm getting sick of this shit. If you want to have an honest conversation about how Joe Biden is a horrible president and we deserve someone better, we can have that honest conversation. And I would be happy to convince someone who can be convinced that the right move is to vote for him in the general election if he is the nominee, because that's the last chance. That's when our back is against the wall. Those are the only two options they are. And we will have that conversation. But we're not sorry.
And then you start voting for your third party, your progressives on the local level. Why is this so? Why do we not understand this?
There is no third party that wins unless they are an independently wealthy billionaire. Ross Perot was the last time that
we even came close to it.
Yeah, and he didn't win a single state. The last time a third party won a single state was 60 years ago, and it was a segregationist.
So honestly, at this point, like I said, and I just basically said, not everybody has the means, will, or or ability to do all this bullshit you talking about. So how about we don't?
I want to get
not because real life is not the Hunger Games. I know you're jerking off thinking that you're gonna be Katniss Everdeen, but baby, that's not you.
Most of us are gonna be dead within weeks. You know.
I mean, I know I would be.
And we need to stop this fantasy. It's like the 50% of men think that they could land the plane if they had to.
Yes, and the fact that 70-something% of men think they can get a point off of Serena Williams.
Yes, and you could probably win against that bear, and the waitress loves you. You fucking idiot.
Like, that's always the one. Like, you think you can. Like, my favorite short story is the one where he talks about it, and he talks about trying to get a point off of Serena Williams, and he sees the corpses of men who've tried. Like, the ball goes right through their skull. And I think he's like, I wave. I don't feel the ball go through my chest, and I'm dead before I hit the ground.
Great Saturday Night Live sketch, which is a takeoff of Billie Jean King with Sarah Sherman and Jason Momoa is the get. Worth just SNL tennis. You'll find it. But to go back, it's just Biden is absolutely terrible. In the Hall of Presidents, he is yet again one of the many near all presidents who will be in hell if such a place exists. His basic greenlighting capitulation to the genocide in Gaza, his lack of action on the crisis at the border, he is culpable morally in so many ways. I defy any of these people to tell me one way in which he is actually worse than Trump. And I know the response we're going to get is somewhere along the lines of we should, but the fact that it is against these two is this and that. But it is what it is. Only move the pieces on the board that we have the power to move. You apply public pressure where you might.
Mm-hmm.
But ultimately, when it comes down to the voting, that's when the choices have already been made.
That part.
You make your voice heard, I've called Congress people. Have any of you who have been bitching called your Congress people? Because that's the least you can fucking do. If you can't show up, I've showed up at protests. Have you showed up?
I've emailed, like I said, I've emailed my Congress people, and Lord knows that's some bullshit.
In fairness, I realize I haven't shown up to a single protest since COVID, but
that's fair though.
Ultimately, it's not because of COVID so much as it's because of fucking time.
And you have a chronic illness.
There's it's sort of a matter of I am not knocking people who don't have the resources to do things, and the only thing they can do is
bitch on Twitter.
Yeah, but there are plenty of people out there who are basically like it's I'm trying to think of people who still call themselves leftists and not the people who have left behind the grip. Like there's online leftists like Jimmy Dore who are not leftists and they've dropped that pretension long ago. But I think of like um, Brianna,
Bree.
yeah, like that's she's been on the anti-Biden train for a while now.
Yeah, she's been doing
But
that for a minute.
like, what actually has she done? Her
Mm,
platform is solely and specifically anti-Biden.
mm, yeah.
There has been no pressure campaign, no trying to draft a candidate, no trying to.
Yeah, I don't think she's done anything really other than bitch about Biden with
That's the
her and
thing.
her
She has,
little
she has the or
douchebag leftist friend.
Cenk Uygur, who's even worse, because Cenk Uygur
Cenk
decided
Uygur
to
is an
grip.
idiot. Cenk Uygur is an idiot par excellence.
Yeah.
I
By the
I
way,
mean,
I do love that he came out and said everybody please needs to stop using the phrase "from the river to the sea" because it is, whatever its original intentions, it is very hurtful to Jewish people, and I'm willing to entertain that argument, but not from
yeah,
a man who named his show "The Young Turks."
Turks. Yeah, that's kind of a dick move, sir. But then again, you know what a dick move looks like, so I guess you might be the person to be able to lecture us about the negative connotations of "from the river to the sea."
The
Yeah,
only,
I
the
just
only
did
thing
that.
bigger than that man's head is his ego.
I think that man at least is 45. He's at his body mass has to be at least 65% ego.
I mean, he looked like one of them circus drawings that you get, like the caricatures that you pay someone $5 for when you go
I
to like
think I
Knott's
had
Berry
one of
Farm.
those. I think I had one of those. Inflation's made it like 15 though.
Inflation has. Oh, that's another thing to talk about. Biden sucking is that messaging, because Biden, and this goes to Will Stansel too. You piece of shit! I want to kick you in the nuts. Um, it doesn't matter what the raw numbers say, it's what people feel. And if
Deal.
your response to, well, people feel wrong, if your response to those numbers saying, well, these indicators of the economy are great, is why aren't people
I
happy? I will say that my income has increased the last 2 years
same.
apace with inflation, like exactly to the percentage point. But
Mine not quite, but I'll take what I can get.
I mean, that's the thing. It was like uncanny when I got my when I my wage technically on paper matched
Mm-hmm.
overall inflation. But you know what my take home discretionary pay is?
Yeah, no. It's not
Lower.
that. It's not that.
Everything is up. And you can say wages outpaced inflation. Like not for
For
every earning sector.
everybody. Not for
Right?
everybody.
Not yet. And you could try to put up the different, well, this is what the way, this is what the
I only
median
go by
wage.
one index and one index alone. Strippers.
I mean, it's true. That's where discretionary income goes.
They're the first to feel it and they're usually the last to recover. They're the first to feel it and the last to recover. If I hear from the girls at a strip club, oh, it's lean tonight. It's dry. It's not worth it.
This is
Then I know we're
probably,
still in trouble.
honestly, if there were true legalization and sex worker unions, there could be a strike against advertiser paid, like free porn
Mm-hmm.
sites, and
Yeah.
basically rendering them completely worthless. You say you don't work or make any products while you're a member of this union
Mm-hmm.
for those websites until they completely get rid of all free tiers. And if they put everything up, you sue. Whatever. I just
I
I
know what you're
love
trying to
I
say.
love
Yeah.
labor power, and I hate. I hate the gig economy, and
Yeah, I mean, they're like the gig economy seemed like such a good idea at first, but then you sit down and actually break it down, and you realize, no, it's not.
so that's what I just say. With sex work, legalize it, unionize, and make that cash.
Yeah, because honestly, I think also the reason sex work remains not legal is it would be a way that even regular people would be able to see how good is the economy really up close, because then you would be seeing you would be able to talk with the your sex worker neighbor or whatever, and they would be able to not lie to you, and they'd be like, no, I like two of my regular clients have been canceling sessions, so of course I'm not getting the big bottle, the big thing of Coke. I'm gonna get this. I'm gonna probably get store brand.
That is a huge factor as well when you've got people saying, "But the economy is great. The inflation rate is not as high as the wage rate." Like, you keep looking at these aggregate numbers and you don't look at individualized segments, like what does wage growth look like for retail workers, and not only that, but like
Mm-hmm.
what what different sectors of inflation are you looking at? Are you looking at just like, because inflation, gas is an inelastic demand, so it doesn't matter how much or how little gas costs, people have to buy fucking gas.
That part.
So, but on the other hand, you take like food groceries and stuff, like you can tell me that certain things like eggs increased X amount and other things didn't. People are going to have a lot less cooking at home and a lot more frozen meals. You,
That
you know,
part.
there's, and if they're really struggling, they're going to have a lot more cereal and ramen.
Cereal and ramen.
But
Yeah.
I bristle at the idea because someone's on paper income can be exactly or even more than the rate of inflation. But what is inflating? Rent prices keep going up despite the
That
fact
part, because
that yeah,
I'm sorry. I'm like, I have coworkers who have places they rent for like 1650,
Jesus.
and they're absolute trash heaps. Like, how you gonna keep a kid in this shit? What the fuck is wrong with them? Like there's no way. South Florida is becoming rapidly uninhabitable by the average person. If you have not already grandfathered in other words, if you already don't either have a relative living here that you're living with, if you don't already have some housing connection, do not come. I'm gonna pull a Kamala and say, do not come.
Yeah. A lot of
Because
a lot of leftists love to point to that as a reason not to vote for Kamala, and it's just like, again, she's going to be the nominee. Nobody's fought really hard enough to make sure that didn't happen. I mean, the second, just get on a tangent, the second Florida canceled the primary, why weren't there demonstrations, protests, and phone calls and campaigns done then? Why wasn't there any public pressure? But everyone just said, throw their hands up. This is a sign the Democrats hate democracy. Well, fucking do something.
yeah.
But again, I digress. I'm just going back to that. I
But it's just, you're just left with the idea that, you know, and I mean, yes, you go into Miami, downtown Miami, you're seeing all the condos go up. You're seeing FIU explode, but who really is all that housing for? It ain't for Unilaces who works at who works in a call center as a manager and has an OnlyFans, but still has to do actual escorting to make rent.
don't even know.
Like, bruh.
I mean, I love that they've introduced bills to prevent hedge funds from purchasing single home
I
properties,
mean,
but
that's cute.
that's
I
a
I
start.
mean, I appreciate it. It's
It's a start,
appreciated.
but
It's
we also
appreciated.
need to like do away with bans on, you know, bans on multifamily housing, ban like on these. I mean, sorry,
I'm
all
sorry. I believe in mixed. I believe in mixed use. Mixed use gets me hot, but I'm weird. Mixed use gets me hot. I like the idea of mixed use.
I know you've been kicked out of the zoning board meetings many times. You've seen what we do in the shadows, yes? Like,
I still have not,
okay,
partially because my job has decided to expand rapidly, and I just have to roll with the punches.
fair enough. Well, if you have Hulu, it's on Hulu.
Nice, but I still have Hulu. But also, I mean, I work in the casino industry. People are still gambling. It's what they're gambling now that's starting to make that people are noticing.
Yeah.
Every third person is gambling their rent. They shouldn't. They know they shouldn't, but they do it.
I mean, if you're not going to make rent anyway, there is a very common psychological like rationale people go through.
Yeah, I
If
have a
you're not
feeling
gonna
it's the
make,
cousin. It's the cousin of the shoe fallacy by Terry. The shoe principle by Terry Pratchett.
it, yeah, I mean, you can either, if you can already start off affording the greatest pair of shoes, those shoes are going to last you 30,
Yeah.
30 years. But if you can only, if I recall, it's if you can only afford the $5 pair of shoes,
Shoes.
you're going to spend more replacing those shoes over time than you were if you had the money
Yeah.
up front to buy the original pair of shoes, if I recall. And I think my thing was there's a lot of people out there who said, if I don't have the money to make rent anyway, I'm going to spend it on things that take me out of this reality, on booze, on gambling, things that give me some short-term feeling that gets me out of the despair.
Yeah.
And that, I mean, that is certainly an indicator of the economy as well.
That part.
It's, you know, um, there's a lot of people talking about the rapid increase in credit card debt that people are going through as well. And
Well,
that's
yeah.
not counted as part of the inflation numbers. So
Should be, but it's
on
not.
top of the idea that people have, you know, I mean, it's going to come on top of the idea that people, even if you have the average person whose wage increased higher than inflation, well, the average person also has more credit card debt, so their monthly payment is higher, so they
That
have
part.
less discretionary income. And the fact is, debt is good. Debt is good. We can get into a discussion about ultimately about capitalism and money and all this stuff, but in the system we have, debt is good
It's
because
good.
the ability to take on debt is basically moving the economy, and the ability to pay back debt also ensures continued lending. Lending makes the economy move. There is more actual debt than there is currency, so debt runs the economy. So it is a good thing if there is debt, but if there is too much debt, then the ability to actually pay back that debt is even harder. It is a spiral.
It really is.
I mean, debt is older than fiat currency.
Huh. Did not know that.
Oh yeah. I mean, just the concept of debt, of owing, of having a tab, that is older.
That's true.
That that should exist in bartering, and it just made the transfer over to fiat currency. And ultimately, like, having debt is great. It gets you. I was having this discussion with someone earlier today. Like, this. You could say whether it's good or bad, or it's neutral. I'm saying, in the world we live in, you need to have a line of credit. You need to have debt that you're continually repaying because it gives you a credit history. And that credit history is able to get you better terms on future loans. If you want to buy a car, if you want to buy a house, or renting an apartment. They're doing credit checks now, so you want to have great credit.
Oh yeah, they're doing credit checks and they're doing background checks, and the thing is, they're learning new ways to charge prospective tenants with fees. Like,
Oh yeah, I heard all about this. They have showing fees now.
excuse me,
You have to pay to see the apartment.
excuse me, what?
Mm-hmm.
Bitch, this isn't Disney World. This isn't the Met. What? What? Oh, what?
Yep.
Sorry. What? Why? And why must we pay? Why must we pay $150 just look at this digga apartment? Why? Why must we pay $150, $200?
Or the $50 application fee, and that's one of the cheaper ones.
Yeah, I know. Most places I know around me are $150 to $250.
I've heard in New York it can range into several hundreds to, I think, like someone was talking about looking for a place in Manhattan where it was over $1,000
just to fill out the paper.
I'm
now turning into my mother, but
it was for like, it was like a broker sort of thing where they basically are paying to apply for whatever apartment they eventually get. Basically.
That's highway robbery, sir. That's highway robbery, ma'am. Highway fucking robbery. Like, and I already know that if it's 1,000 in my if it's 1,000 in New York, I know it's got to be 1,500 to 200 in Miami. But in Miami, the Russian oligarchs are going to be Russian oligarchs, and the Brazilian and the Venezuelan exiles with money are more than happy to stash that money there.
The ones who didn't get killed because of the condo collapse, ruined all their laundered money schemes.
Yeah, I'm just waiting to see what's going to happen I'm also just going to wait to see what's going to happen with Ukraine now that Mini Mike has put in the laddered budget or whatever the fuck it is.
Yeah, again, I keep seeing people talk about, and I can't remember who it was, if it was JD Vance or another asshole, talking about how, Ukraine has already lost Donetsk, they've already lost, the Donbass, they've already lost, what's the K? It doesn't matter.
Yeah, I know. I can visualize where it's supposed to be, but yeah.
Kherson.
Kherson, yeah.
And hey there, I named free Vivek, fucker. Anyway, they're talking about like how much funding can we keep funding for this losing war, and I'm like, I don't know when it looked like people are losing a war. I keep going on this, but the only thing that on the international stage that matters aside from military might, and again, it doesn't matter as much as I think, is our word, and our word should mean something. And the fact is, I've said it before.
Fucking over Ukraine is it's an embarrassing. Like, we already have embarrassed ourselves morally. Are we really going to make it worse?
Well, Chris Christie was the only person on the debate, first or second debate, who understood the fact, and he was, he's just, he'd never worked in international affairs. He was not a federal senator. He worked in the state, but he understood that we gave Ukraine our word in the 90s that if they denuclearized, we would protect them from a nuclear power.
And we're kind of doing that.
If this had happened without that, I would have been sort of not ambivalent about what happens in Ukraine but there's only so much shit we can do in the world. There's genocides going on in the Sudan. There's genocides going on
in the Congo.
Yeah, there's like, we can't be everywhere all
Tigray.
And if we can't be everywhere all the time, I wouldn't exactly be saying, hey, let's go fund everything about Ukraine. I'd be saying, Jesus, this sucks. I mean, we should maybe do some sanctions. But the fact is that we told Ukraine to denuclearize, and
Correct.
they would be under our protection. So that is a word of ours that we have to keep. And our word is already meaning less and less after we
Yes,
backed out of the Iran nuclear deal.
that
After,
part.
and it may be less important, but after we dropped out of the Paris Climate Accords as well, people are not going to look to us to join any sort of financial deal or military, like any kind of military
Any
assistance
kind of
or any.
long-term military agreement or financial arrangement that requires supporting another country for an extended period of time.
I mean, I am glad that it was a sigh of relief when basically, um, say what you will about NAFTA. NAFTA, plenty of. I don't think anybody liked NAFTA, but the fact is
Yeah,
that we just said, "Oh, we're pulling out of NAFTA" before we even negotiated a new trade agreement. Eventually, we got a new trade agreement, but the fact that we just said, "Now we're pulling out of it," and we'll work out the details later. Like, number one, that puts us in a worse bargaining position. Not the worst in
that
the world.
part.
We're a huge economy, so we have some leverage. But the fact is, if it's like quitting a job without another one lined up, and Donald Trump is the biggest fucking dope in the planet because he thinks he can run countries like a business. And I'm sorry, but a country is not a business. It
It's
is,
really not.
and his bull in a China shop way of foreign policy. It's what I tried to use to convince erstwhile Republicans not to vote for him, because I realized ultimately they might understand. If they don't understand, if they're not with the left and liberals on social issues, they might understand the fact that Trump is basically bull in a China shopping his way through foreign policy that is going to have
Yep.
extremely bad effect on our economy later. It's not the way I prefer to, because to me it's not the most important, but it frankly is incredibly important that our word means something across the world. And so when all of these people are saying we need to stop funding Ukraine, this is yet again an example of why 20 years down the line, we are not going to have the clout that we did from the 50s through basically the 90s.
Yeah.
We are slowly, like, people want to talk on the right and the Republican Party want to talk about our decline as an empire. In a global world, and I realized I don't want to sound like a globalist. So why don't you buy some Brain Force Ultra here on
Bye. Bye.
but this is
Bye. Oh my God.
this is a world with many different powers, and we have to work with them. Our military might is not just going to win the day every single time, and frankly
It's really
it hasn't
not.
won the day in a fucking while. I don't care how much money we throw into the military for the Pentagon to lose every single audit they possibly have. Our military hasn't won a war in a while. It's something that Donald Trump brings up a lot. So if diplomacy matters and our word matters, and our fall as a world power is going to come not just from economic troubles, but the fact that other countries are not going to want to trust us, period.
Yeah, and it's the fact that, and if nothing else, as long as we have please excuse me, and I admit it, that's the one thing I did up until he whiffed it on Israel. That was the one thing I was like, well, if nothing else, at least they'll know that somebody in charge is worthy of having a conversation with, will be let into the group chat again. Now I'm not. Now I think we about to get kicked out of the group chat again. Honestly, I will not be shocked if the United States gets kicked out of the group chat again.
Well, that's the thing with Israel, and I will just say is because, I mean, we haven't done a good enough job putting pressure on Biden to step down and put someone else's place. So the nominee is going to be Biden, and when that comes,
Yeah.
and people say I can't vote for Biden because he basically allowed a horrific genocide, ethnic cleansing to take place. I want to put in mind that the only other option is going to be the man who sparked off the Great March of Return by moving the embassy to Jerusalem.
Yeah, I'm
He's
like, it's
not
either
going to be to the left of Biden on this matter. He is
he is.
going to be worse.
Yeah, it's like as they say where my family's from, you just swap out black dog for monkey. You're not getting a different or better deal here. You're just getting a different flavor a more potent flavor of awful.
Yeah.
This was just diet awful with 10%, with 0.5, 0.10% less, whatever. Meanwhile, you're going to just push past that for full on extra fortified with Christo nationalism awful. Okay. I remember I have a couch, like I have a couch in Europe I can sleep on. I don't know about the rest of y'all motherfuckers.
I just say there are people on the left who have said Joe Biden has to earn my vote. Yes, that
Yeah,
is the
that's
pressure
fair.
you can put on it.
That's fair.
You can't threaten to take something away you've already taken away, though. You
That part.
say, I'm not going to vote for Biden. Fine. Biden's going to not listen to literally anything you have to say. And I use Biden as a
Yeah.
stand-in for just, blocks of people
Anybody.
in general.
Yeah.
No, I don't think Biden's carousing Twitter. But, yes, Twitter. Ultimately, public pressure comes from the ability to make a lot of noise. Call your Congress people, call your senator, and say, look, this shit has to change. There needs to be organized campaigns. Get group texts of people. Start calling. Like, if 20 people call your congressman with the same message, that is at least show up on a fucking memo somewhere.
Yeah,
If,
that's
like,
at least going to end up in a meeting. That's going to end up in meeting notes.
I mean, there's a club. There's a local club, like a local Democrats club that I'm joining, for example, and this is the perfect those kind of things. If you're a member of, if you're a part of, that's where you could organize the pressure campaigns. The pressure comes from the bottom up. It goes through chains. You are not going to get Biden to do better by just saying on Twitter, "Oh, he's lost my vote. I am never voting for Biden."
Yeah, no.
Send that message to, like, put your call in till I can't remember my congressman's name, but I would be like, all right, I need fucking all 30 of you. We need to start calling that fucking asshole, and you start telling as many friends as you possibly can. If only 5 of your friends and only 5 of your friends do, that's it. Like, just start.
That's 10 people. It's a start.
Just make the calls and tell them, listen, we need you to say something about this. We need you to come out in support of a ceasefire because we need you to be another link in that chain. And if you're not like it, and I can't change what my vote about Biden is going to be, but I can change my vote for you, Congressman. And I can have my 40 friend change their vote for you, Congressman. This is a swing district. And if I get enough people, I don't mind losing one congressman if we can't get Biden to change his vote because, here's the thing. You haven't lost my vote. You have until now, until election day.
Yeah, he has time. He has time. And I think that's a good side. That's a good and a bad thing. He has time, which means that scene in Braveheart, as annoying as Braveheart is, where they're holding the thing and he's like, hold. Yeah, and I'm like, sir, you only got but so many holds before you make your move. I know you've been in the Senate for 11 years, and this is what we've seen you do this before. I don't know if you really want to do that shit again.
It's Ben Shapiro and all that gang. They just, they produced a couple of movies and they're not successful, by any stretch of the imagination.
I heard they made a film, another film where they made an actual like movie. Like basically it's a ripoff of Wanna Man
and Ladybugs.
And I'm just sitting here like, and then someone's like, "Oh, actually, initially they were going to get do another documentary, but they couldn't find enough. Participation, and what they found contradicted the story they wanted to tell." I'm like, "Aw, facts didn't care about their feelings."
Well, here's the ultimate thing. I like to say these are all people who failed to get careers in show business. Michael
That
Moe,
part.
Hero, and all of them. They wanted careers in show business and they couldn't get it. And the philosophy is you can't be a conservative in Hollywood. I'm like, no, you just can't be a no talent conservative in Hollywood because Mel Gibson still gets work.
As horrible as he is, yeah, he does.
You can't be talentless
You can't.
and be conservative.
No, you
Because
can't.
I'm sorry, people knew James Woods was a psychopath long before he slowed down his career. Ultimately, it's because he's, not leading man material. Even when he was younger, he just got those quirky roles occasionally because they made weird movies like fucking Videodrome,
Hey, don't hate on Videodrome. I fucking loved Videodrome.
No, I love David Cronenberg, but again, very weird, and it's the only kind of movie where James Woods can be the lead. But you've got
Well, now Cronenberg is starting to cast conventionally hot people in his film, so I don't know what to say to that.
I really
he has Alexander Skarsgård in Infinity Pool. That was weird. Wait, was that him who made that, or was that his son who made it?
That was his son.
He's just like, Daddy, I'm here for it.
I still haven't seen the newest Cronenberg one about the surgery addicts.
The Crimes of the Future one?
Yeah, I've heard it was bad, and I was really sad to hear that. But I'm like, I'm sorry, Cronenberg's appeal is that his movies are great. I don't think I could watch the types of movies he makes if they were bad. Because if Videodrome were a bad movie, that would be a hard watch.
That would, you can't. Yeah, Videodrome was a wonderfully elegant piece of cinema.
Like if The Fly weren't a masterpiece, I'm not going to sit through a movie where a guy
turns into a fly,
like slowly and barks on the guy's arm and dissolves it on camera. Like unless it's a masterpiece.
Yeah, unless it's. And I mean, and that shit was painful as fuck too. Like I'm like, oh, that does not look like that went well for anybody.
Cronenberg is such a genius; he can make a movie like that makes you cry at the end.
Yeah, just the at the end, and I'm just like,
nope,
sorry. No, but I'm sorry. The fact that they were involved in real life, that piercing. There are only 2 screams of pain that I'm like, why did this person not win an award? There are only 2 screams of pain that I believe deserve so much more credit than they get. One is Charlie Hunnam at the end of, I think it's season 3 of Sons of Anarchy, when his child gets kidnapped. The other is Gina Davis at the end of The Fly. Only person who I think could have screamed better and thrown in a snot bubble for good measure would have been Viola Davis. That's the only person I think who could have done that. Who could have done that entire?
Young at that.
Huh?
She was too young, wasn't she?
Yeah, but you understand what I'm saying.
Yeah, no, I was thinking too literally.
Yeah, I was like, Viola Davis is literally the only other person I think that could have executed that scream at the end with the same pathos while holding the gun.
Cronenberg is such an expert at ending his movies.
This is true.
Because whether it is ending...
He gives us the ending we deserve.
And not only that, but he does not linger for a fucking second.
Yeah. He's like, we're done here.
Whether it is in action, whether it is the end that the character is gone and died and you are left with the aftermath, boom, it's done, or the character is contemplating the future, he never lets a single frame linger too long.
Yeah, he's like, I think we're done here. I'm going to leave you with all these uncomfortable thoughts. I'm out of here.
Like, I've seen, there's so many different, movies, you're still left with the shock at the end of, Videodrome and at the end of The Fly or The Dead Zone. You're still left with the haunting, vague, emotional horribleness at the end of Eastern Promises. You're still left with...
Well, for me, it was more... I felt that more with Dead Zone. Yeah. I think because Dead Zone just felt like... Stilson was so much Trump's id. Like,
He was smarter though.
yeah, he was smarter. He's the smart person that Trump thinks he is. I just keep thinking about the fact that like he was so pumped up on adrenaline that he frigging put a baby and he thought, and you know it, and some of the performances that he got out of people, particularly actors that most of us just think of as funny. Like I'm still kind of like the way he he broke Christopher Walken in order for him to look like, "Aw, I just want to hold him and tell him everything's going to be okay even though I know I'm lying."
I think Christopher Walken has been so heavily memeified by his interesting diction, and I remember an interview where he explained that the reason he speaks the way he does is because he grew up with Russian immigrant parents who insisted on speaking English, so his accent comes from English as a second language. And it's, I mean, that's a very, and so he clearly doesn't have like the chameleon's ability to disguise his accent, because people who do can change, usually over time their accent changes from what they grew up with. So it's very interesting, but I think people forget because of that what an incredible fucking actor he is. Like, just the Deer Hunter isn't just that final scene. Speaking of movies that ended fucking immediately, the Deer Hunter isn't just that final scene. Like, Christopher Walken spends that entire movie breaking. And there's also, I mean, of course, there's the Dead Zone. My favorite, actually, is Catch Me If You Can. Watching him pretend everything is okay for the entire movie, and finally just kind of having a moment of clarity for that short second when he realizes, you know, his family is not what it was anymore. And then kind of reverting back to the delusion before it's over. Like, he was really like, oh man, you almost had that moment. You almost came to terms with it. It is. I mean, I still get sad thinking about it. It's like it's like the sort of lesser talked about tragic characters of his.
Yeah, because no, you're right. That is actually, because I really don't think about how sad that character actually is.
God, I love Christopher Walken, and I love David Cronenberg movies. But that'll be it for the day.
Yes.
I don't think we've permanently settled on who we're going to shout out to at the end of every episode.
I'm sorry. I think Dick Cheney is the logical choice.
All right. Well, I think he's how old is he? Is he 80 something?
Yeah,
if he's in his
something.
Okay, well, in that case, okay. I was gonna say, if he was younger than that, I would have said Dick Cheney's still not in The Hague. But since
let me double check.
Okay.
He's 82.
All right. Well, I feel safe saying it then, because lots of younger people, have left us in the world, and then that guy who's responsible for basically 1 million dead Iraqis is still in it. This just in: Dick Cheney somehow still not dead. Good night, everybody.
Or in The Hague.